Hey everybody, welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs podcast, and my name is Kevin McCaffrey. I'm here with Adam Mamawala. What's up, Adam?
Hey man, how you doing?
Oh, I'm fine, I guess. We are follow us at Away Games Pod on Twitter, on Instagram, on all the things. We don't have a TikTok.
Oh shit!
Do you personally?
That's why we haven't blown up yet.
Yeah. Although I will say, weirdly, over the off season, our download numbers have been going up.
That's great.
It's strange.
Very active on Vine.
Yes, we're big on Vine. Now's the time for Vine.
Also, our live journal.
Yeah, my Zanga. Holler at me. Do you personally have a TikTok?
Fuck no.
I think I drunkenly signed up for it once. I don't even think I know the password or anything, but I think I do have an account that exists.
I mean, I feel like a real like okay boomer sort of guy when I just don't even try to understand TikTok, but I really like. I was saying to somebody recently, I think this will probably be a tweet at some point when I remember to tweet it, but like I'm in a weird middle ground of like being older than young people, but still definitely young.
Yes.
Like I'm 32, but I can still be like, back in my day, TikTok was just a Kesha song.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird. I guess you're firmly a millennial, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm an old millennial.
I'm born in '87, and it's like anyone early '80s and until a certain time. What is the cutoff? Like 82, 83?
I've seen 81, so I'm an 82, so I'm an elder millennial. Eliza Schlesinger special, I think, right? Wasn't that the title of one? I didn't see it.
Millennial sounds like a comedy album of a Mormon.
Yeah, yeah. It's Eliza could pass if she would. She could have, like, visually, I think. Yeah, man. So I mean, this is exactly how much has gone on with the Cubs this week. But nothing. Yeah, we had the big week last week.
Yes.
Steven Souza.
Big Steven Souza. Big. It's Jeremy Jeffress, right?
Yes, Jeremy Jeffress. I suppose Pedro Strop is gone. That is news this week.
Strop is gone. Kinsler is gone. Phelps is gone. Holland is gone. All the big names.
all your favorite flavors from the 2019 Cubs. Yeah, Holland went to Pittsburgh. Kinsler's in Miami now, right?
Holland went to Pittsburgh?
I thought so.
I feel like he went somewhere else.
Oh, okay. Well, could be. I mean,
don't
get your news here.
Kinsler is in Miami. Strop is in Cincinnati, obviously. Mm-hmm. That really hurt.
Specifically, Cincinnati is a bummer, yeah.
Like, to have to watch or see Strop and Castellanos 18 times a year in a red uniform is upsetting.
Reds are really trying, man. I mean, God bless. Good for them. It sucks for us, but yeah, they are really trying. And Derek Holland is in Pittsburgh, so that is correct news.
Is Marty Brennaman still there?
I believe last year was his last year.
I cannot tell you how sad it makes me that he doesn't get to be pissed about the sideways hat.
That really is something. Oh, man. Maybe he'll come back for a game and it'll still blow his mind. But yeah, Marty Brennaman having to call Pedro Strop games for the whole year, that does seem like a perfect sort of matchup from a Schadenfreude perspective.
It really... Do you think that the Cubs think that Strop doesn't have anything left, or is it purely a financial decision?
I think it's purely financial, and I've seen, I think both Brett Taylor and Brian Smith made the argument that the Cubs' approach to the bullpen, the way they've done it with volume, getting guys with upside, or with options, excuse me. I mean upside too, but guys who are controlled for years going forward, optionable to and from the minors, like taking that sort of bulk approach instead of spending the money on Strop, who is a question mark, health-wise, stuff-wise, etc., is a sensible direction. And I agree with all of that. In a sense, I guess my point is just that I think it's a bit of a false choice. I think they could have done both. It didn't cost a lot, and I do think it's the kind of thing going into last year, right, where one thing you heard Theo and the team talk about was they needed they needed leaders in this clubhouse. They needed character, and then they trade Tommy La Stella who was a guy who brought character and leadership to that clubhouse. He also brought contact, which is another thing that they've been looking for ever since. But at least we got Connor Lillis-White out of it, that Cubs legend. So, to me, the Strop thing strikes me in a similar way, where the guy is an all-time great Cub reliever, obviously, but he's also beloved in that clubhouse and a leader, and I do think it would have been worth it to spend that money to keep him around and just see what happens. But, every dime counts as they're trying to get fully under the 208. So.
Right. Yeah, and I think I totally agree. I think he's almost like a Zobrist in that way, where you can't assess his value based purely on his on-field production, because he brings a lot to the table, especially for any of the younger Cubs pitchers or relievers. I just
totally.
He will be missed.
Yeah, and he's just fun. It's just friggin' fun.
But I think we should still wear our hats to the right when the Cubs are trying to close a game.
Yeah, yeah, or to the left. Yeah,
to the left.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe to the right as some sort of political statement.
Yeah, sort of flip it around, some sort of
That's more of a CC Sabathia move.
Sure.
Yeah, hat to the right.
Yeah, that's true. I will hold out hope that we can have sort of a Chris Coughlin situation where maybe Cubs surprise a little bit and are running in first, Strop's having a good half, and then we trade for him at midseason.
Right.
That I still would. I mean, that would be a beautiful thing to see happen for me. But yeah.
Speaking of Zobrist, is he officially not playing anywhere? What is the word with him?
I don't believe there has been any official word in terms of whether he plans on continuing playing or not. My guess is that it's sort of a Cubs or bust situation. I don't feel like it doesn't seem like he's in a spot where he wants to go somewhere else to just play one more year at the end.
Yeah, I mean, in a like, if it were just him, like, given everything that happened with his family last year, and certainly we don't know all the details, but it would be hard to imagine him wanting to, like, uproot his family and go somewhere else.
Right.
If it were just him, he seems like a good fit to, like, go play in Anaheim or something, like, be with Madden again and try to get another ring possibly.
Yeah, that's true. That makes sense.
Be that sort of guy, but but I think we've mentioned it before. If he's not going to play, let's get him on the coaching staff in some capacity.
Yeah, right. A guy who seems to be, another guy who's been through it all. He has such an interesting profile as a guy who was not a superstar prospect, but worked his way into being a star player over the course of his career. Those WAR numbers are huge. Yeah, and a guy who just seems to be a great guy. I don't know. Did you see the write-up where he went and he basically he was supposed to fly somewhere to do a signing for a bunch of fans, and then the flight was canceled, so he just like rented a car and then drove a bunch of hours to get there. Spent like individual time with everybody, and and then a fan wrote like a long post about it. He didn't post anything about it, and it was cool to see him wearing his Cubs jersey too when he is not officially a member of the Cubs. So who knows what's going on behind the scenes there? But he does seem like it could be very well be a wait and see where the team is at as the season begins. To see if they have money and space for him. I wouldn't be surprised if he, like Brandon Morrow felt like he owed the Cubs, which he doesn't. You negotiate your contract, you do whatever.
Yeah, it's not like he wanted to be hurt.
No, but I do think that played into him taking a minor league deal with the Cubs, and I could see Zobrist, the way last year went, I could see Zobrist doing something similar.
Yeah. I agree with what you said earlier. The one thing I don't really actively have an issue with this offseason is the bullpen. I feel like it's been fine. And, do you think that what we saw from Kimbrel last year was just a result of him getting into the season so late, or signing so late? Or do you think we're past the point where he's going to be an elite closer?
I think, knock on wood, I'm still hopeful that he is an elite closer. I think it's likely that we're past the most elite part of Craig Kimbrel's career, which is almost as elite as any closer has ever been. Here's a fun stat. Craig Kimbrel has more saves than hits allowed in his career, and it's not even close. He has like 60 more saves than hits allowed in his career. There's no other closer that is like that. I know that because I wrote a trivia question based on that for HQ Sports recently, and the other two options I gave were Kenley Jansen and Aroldis Chapman. I looked up the stats, and it's both not even close. So career-wise, Kimbrel's been dominant at especially on a rate level, as dominant as anyone who's ever lived and closed. Yeah. So I don't think we're getting that necessarily, but I expect a top 10 closer and possibly top 5. I think.
I mean, I'm hoping a normal spring training and normal routine will get him feeling right again, because his numbers were so out of whack with the rest of his career last year, like just the home run numbers alone.
Well, and that's the thing too, because the stuff seemed to still be there. The velocity wasn't fully back, but I think that can largely be tied to the late in the year start. But he still had good velocity. He still had that hard break on the curveball. So I think the stuff seems to be there. And it's also just joining a new team. It's got to be weird to just start. It's got to just be weird to feel like your season starts in the middle. Yeah. So
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I think, but that's the biggest bullpen acquisition. I think is Craig Kimbrel if he comes back.
I think it's been hard to be overly optimistic considering the lack of just about any moves made this offseason, but I also think that you look at last year, especially down the line, as a year where like just about anything that could go wrong went wrong, and the Cubs won 84 games, which is not good. But I think you can also make a case that if the Cubs have a little bit more luck and less injuries this year, they should still be like a 90-win team. Like I think you'd be deluding yourself if you think this is like a 100-win team, but I think there's certainly a route for them to be a playoff team, and I guess I'm trying to find something for myself to feel optimistic about, because it's February now and spring training starts this month, and I'm not as excited as I usually am this time of year.
Yeah, same, and that sucks because me and my brothers are going to the first couple days of spring training, so it's going to be weird to just be there and like, okay, I guess. I mean, we'll have fun. I'll be drunk and stuff, but it's just. It is. You don't have the same enthusiasm going in. The last time I went to spring training was 2016, so that was a lot of enthusiasm and worked out well. But
had you before that?
No, that was the first time.
So you're saying every time you've been to spring training, the Cubs have won a World Series that year?
100% so far.
Well, so I think we know how the season's going to go.
This is the best news I can bring to this podcast. Yeah. So I saw that USA Today, which, I mean, that's where Nightingale writes, so let's not put too much into their predictions, but they just put out their projections for the year, had the Cubs slotted in 4th with a projected 82 wins. I don't think we're looking at that. Like you said, even I haven't really crunched my numbers and gotten down to the predictions yet, but I'm feeling mid to upper 80s, I think. And like you said, you don't expect this team, as currently constructed, to be a 100-win team. And that's frustrating because the team in the middle of its window with this market size and this value should be aiming for the upper end every year. But the Twins won 100 games last year. And you look at their roster and you look at the Cubs roster this year. I mean, like it's within the margin of error. You know what I mean? This could, if the Cubs won 95 games, you could see how that happens. I don't think it's going to happen because so much would have to go right with that starting pitching and stuff. But I think the offense is going to be better than possibly expected.
Well, as you know, last year I narrowly avoided having to tattoo Pacoda on my ass.
I know. Yeah.
I don't want to make any claims about having Bob Nightingale's face on my ass.
No, but that's what a place for it. That is.
So, I mean, it's. I guess what I'm saying is I have less of a beef with an 82-win projection going into this year because I can understand why someone would look at this team and be like, yeah, they seem about 500. I think the thing that I'm trying to figure out is the whole point of constructing a team the way they have and doing what they've done is we want to maintain being competitive. That doesn't mean we're going to be all in all the time, but we want to stay competitive and not have to have another stretch like we did when Epstein first took over, where like we're tearing everything down to rebuild it. However, I would argue that if the Cubs in back-to-back years win 84 games and then 82 games, it's arguably more frustrating than just committing to tearing down and starting over again. I'm not saying the Cubs should do that, but I am saying that I think you would agree that those years when we could start to see what was happening in the Cubs minor league system, even when the big league team was bad, was kind of exciting. Like 2013, 2014, you could feel something happening, and I didn't mind that much that the big league team was bad because I could see what they were building.
Yeah.
Right now, it feels like we're in this kind of weird in-between where the big league team doesn't look that good. The minor league team, or the guys in the minor
farm system, yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's a few names, but not to the degree that there were 6 years ago.
No, and it's right. It's a middle-of-the-pack farm system right now, which is well up from what it's been the past couple years. And right now the Cubs have consensus top 3, borderline top, or consensus 3, borderline 4 top 100 prospects. So that we're approaching exciting a little more too. But yeah, I agree. It is frustrating. It is frustrating to see a couple of holes that if filled, and when you have the resources to fill it, would make you elite this year, and then to choose not to be elite, and then to sort of hang around and hope. And I get that, and also I get the reasoning for it because it leaves them flexibility to sort of see how the first half goes and then commit to one direction for the end of the year. So if the Cubs are languishing in fourth in the middle of the year, then I think you're going to see trades at the deadline to sort of take a dip the rest of the year and reload. Whereas if they are in play, possibly adding money and forgetting about the luxury tax when it comes to that point. But it just seems, I would rather I would rather really be putting the money towards winning.
Well, I think the other thing that's a little confusing as fans, and I think this probably has more to do with the Ricketts than it does with Epstein, is that after 2018, when you have that just incredibly frustrating end to the year where they lose to Milwaukee in the one-game playoff, they lose to Colorado, at that point it was like, okay, there's going to be big changes here, like possibly structural changes. We need to start evaluating based on what we see and not based on like what we think or hope is going to happen. And then we've seen 2 straight years where that just hasn't been the case.
Yeah, the biggest signing was Kimbrel halfway through a year, and besides that, we're looking at Descalzo, Steven Souza, a bunch of really end of bench type things.
Right, and no real trades to get rid of anybody from the core. And I don't think you and I are proponents of that, but it sounded like that's what Epstein was implying at that time, which is like, hey, we've got to stop being sentimental about this and start evaluating on-field performance. And I don't know that the Cubs have really done that.
No, and one of the things I've enjoyed so much about the Theo tenure is that when Theo talks, I believe him. Mm-hmm. He tends to say things that he means and no more than that. And, I mean, he basically went into this offseason being like, status quo is not good enough. And now literally like, it might be status quo. It's just saying, and I think there was also the quote, I forget if it was Theo or Jed, but, we are open for business. Yeah, but no business happened, I mean, there's, it's, the signings they've made have been fine, but no real hole has been filled. But the bullpen hopefully will be okay. The numbers for the bullpen were okay overall last year, but aggressively bad in high leverage situations at the end, like incredibly bad. And that there's there's how you swing 4 or 5 games right there.
I mean, I think even a little, disconnected from everything last year, if I asked you right now to just name like 5 games that the Cubs absolutely should have won that they didn't, I think you and I could both do that.
Oh yeah, I mean 2 games in the Cardinal series at the very end, Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
the Cardinal series, the Bryce Harper grand slam, the Addison Russell throwing home for no reason. Like there's so many games that just were, grabbing defeat from the
jaws of victory.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess talking about the offseason, we did get rid of Addison Russell. I guess that is probably our favorite.
I hate the phrase addition by subtraction, but it has never been truer than in that case.
It just makes me feel better. It's nice to not be... What's that?
Has anyone signed him?
No.
Yeah.
No one yet. So, it's interesting. That makes me feel better to not have a roster spot wasted there and just worrying about him coming up and not being good and just feeling bad about it. So that's good, but it's it's not how you want your off season to go. It's weird. So I think one thing that a lot of people might not know is that the luxury tax calculations are made at the end of the year. So basically, this like the Cubs could get above or under throughout much of this year.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and I think the math is a little more complicated than that even. But I always thought, or I had thought, I guess I had assumed it was just when the year began. That's your thing. But I guess it makes sense that it wouldn't be that way, because then you could just, after opening day, trade for $1 million big salaries, and yeah. So that's something to keep in mind, and possibly why you're seeing the Cubs take a little bit more of a waffling approach, to leave themselves within striking distance of getting under the luxury tax, but not, but also leaving themselves the possibility, to possibly add, but we've also passed the time when it's easiest to add without giving up assets. So,
do you think anything's going to happen with KB?
At this point, no. At this point, I would say no.
More likely, trade deadline sort of thing.
Yeah.
Playing well. Yeah.
Yeah, and that just seems crazy, because it seems like what a weird deadline addition it would be for a team to just add a superstar young third baseman with a year and a half left on his contract. Right. I mean, that you would think that would bring back a lot of value, because you don't really see that guy available at trade deadline almost ever, and there's a good reason for that too, because he shouldn't be, because you should sign him. Also, the no extensions. That's something I'm mad about. Yeah. You should have gotten an extension done at this point.
I thought Javi would at least happen.
Yeah.
So.
And Javi, absolutely hold out for what you're due, but the Cubs at some point have to go a couple dollars over to make something happen, to give themselves stability going forward. I don't believe Javi's asking for anything insane relative to his actual value. That is something that there's no excuse to not have either made a move to solidify what your roster is going forward and give yourselves a direction, or to lock down one of these pieces. There's no excuse for that. And hopefully that's something we get, although I don't feel too optimistic about it, but hopefully that's something we get before spring training begins.
I assume there has not been any more chatter about the whole Arenado KB one-for-one thing, right?
No. I mean, it seemed like it was hot for a minute, and I haven't heard anything new in a few days, Just Mookie Betts. I guess I've seen reports about Mookie Betts being very likely to be dealt, and still sort of believe it when I see it, because that's also insane.
I mean, if you put him on the Dodgers, they have to, again, be odds-on favorites.
Right. They are already, and adding probably the second best baseball player would in the world would help them. Right. Mookie is really just about the only guy who you could see on any year really could go up to around the 10-win mark with his play every year outside of Trout. So, I mean, yeah, that would be an incredible thing to see. And I guess I understand that from the Red Sox perspective more than I understand the Cubs trading Bryant, because there's 1 year for Mookie, and if you look at the teams right now in the AL East, I think the Red Sox are clearly third.
Yeah.
Because Yankees 1, Rays 2, and then there's probably a gap, and then Red Sox and another gap.
And the Red Sox still don't even have a manager, I don't think.
I guess I'm not. Yeah, I guess I'm not aware if they have signed someone. I have not seen it.
I mean, your boy Dusty's in Houston.
Dusty is in Houston. I saw they just signed a new general manager who looked like he had a made up name. I can't. What's that?
I think his last name is Click.
Click, yeah.
From Tampa Bay.
Okay, yeah.
But I mean, Tampa Bay executives have a good track record. Look at Andrew Friedman.
Absolutely, yeah. And Bloom in Boston now, the guy who went up there came from Tampa Bay too. Yeah. So I mean, it would be cool to see that situation get settled too. Just but also as a Cubs fan, you don't really want to see him go to the NL and not the Cubs.
Yeah, totally. You got anything else?
I don't think so, man. Yeah.
I got one other thing that I was going to throw at you. Also, make sure to check out our friends at Thrive Fantasy.
Yeah.
If you have been listening to us, you know that Thrive Fantasy sponsors us just about every week. It's a new DFS app for sports betting, for prop bets. I wish I had done some prop bets on the Super Bowl. Did you do any bets?
I did. and I won overall, but barely. I put several things down, and I ended up I believe $9 up.
Did you do anything silly like the national anthem or whatever?
No, I didn't do that, but I did a triple parlay with, I believe, which I missed by one, so missed the whole thing. But did that. I think what I ended up mainly winning on was just Chiefs straight up, like just the Chiefs winning the game. Yeah. Because besides that, I bet like George Kittle on the over yardage, the under on the total score, and the Chiefs to win as a three-leg parlay, and Kittle. And I would have hit it if that catch Kittle had at the end of the first half counted,
yes.
but they called it back. So, yeah, you didn't put anything down?
Nah.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to. I guess I could use your.
I could.
Our not sponsor, mybookie.ag.
Yeah. I have two not sponsored gambling things, but yeah, the good thing about Thrive Fantasy, and use the code AWAYGAMES, get yourself some free money, is that it doesn't have to be the Super Bowl to put a bet down. It can be any time.
That's true. I did not mention that part. That's the best part. If you when you make your first deposit of $10 or more, you will get a free $10. It's free money.
It's free money.
Who doesn't want free money?
Yeah. That's get the Ricketts involved.
I had one more question for you. This was something that I meant to bring up last week, and then I forgot. It's a little sad, but I think it's interesting also. So, obviously, last week we spent a lot of time talking about Kobe, especially when I was out in L.A. And it was very sad, but it was also, after we recorded that, I went down to see the memorial, and I've never seen anything like it in my life. Like, just the sheer volume of people and things that people had left, and the kinds of things that people left, not just like a jersey, but these huge handwritten letters and posters and thanking him. And so it occurred to me that I wanted to ask you a question. There's been a lot of talk about the whole Mamba mentality thing.
Yes.
Who do you think, who in your lifetime, of all the Cubs you've watched, who in your mind are the one or two guys who most exemplify that mindset? Because I have a couple guys in mind.
That's a good
Mamba
question.
Mentality comes.
It's not a Cubs thing specifically, but the day when basically the day that the Lakers played the Blazers, the first real home game after Kobe passed, I realized that Damian Lillard, who went off that game, really in the NBA to me is maybe the closest thing to the Mamba mentality. Where he's
on an insane run right now.
Oh yeah.
It's a run that's comparable to that stretch Kobe had years ago, where I think he scored 40 in like 9 or 10 straight games. Like Dame is doing that right now.
Yeah, and he's shooting from midcourt all the time and just not going to. He's just fearless. Yeah, he's completely fearless, and he believes literally every shot is going in. So one thing, and this is talking around it again a little bit too, but one thing I really loved about Kerry Wood and Carlos Zambrano being on the Cubs was I felt like it had been a while since the Cubs had a bully. You know? And they needed that, like someone who just wasn't scared of anything. And, Wood was a bit of a quieter strength, and Zambrano was a lot louder, obviously. But, I think, Anthony Rizzo, and it's going to be overlooked, like a lot of things in Anthony Rizzo's playing career, I think. But Anthony Rizzo last year showed some of that, where he came back on that completely messed up ankle. And
the picture of that is like unbelievable.
Yeah, and was hammering the ball. Like he came back, so I think that tracks for me a little bit. A guy who is just not going to miss a game. Also, when it matters, unless he absolutely has to. Yeah, who are the people that come to mind for you?
The two people that come to mind are more recent. I definitely agree with Kerry Wood. I think the thing that I loved about like guys like Wood and Zambrano was that they were like they were what Jay Cutler wasn't, which is like it was obvious on their faces that they really cared all the time.
Sure, yeah.
And so from that perspective, that element of the Mamba mentality, just of like being like, I'm a guy who cares about this way more than you, and you can see it all the time. I think Wilson is very much that sort of guy.
I was just about to say, yeah, as you were leading up to that, I was like, oh, Wilson Contreras, yeah.
And from the perspective of somebody just deciding, like, no, we are going to win this game, I think Lester is that guy.
Those are two great calls, absolutely. Lester's the guy, yeah, that he started more game ones in playoff series than any pitcher in history, and that says something. That if that's not an ace, what is? Over the course of his
remember,
career.
going in having gone to Game 5 of the World Series. when your backs are up against the wall and you're down 3-1, is there anyone you would have rather had on the mound than Jon Lester in that game? And totally. I think that's very much like a Kobe sort of thing where, like, if the Lakers were down 3-1 in a series, you want him to have the ball in his hands and just will his team not to lose.
Yeah. I think I think those are perfect picks, actually. Like, yeah, Wilson Contreras being just the epitome of a guy who plays with his hair on fire, can't stop, won't stop. And yeah, Lester, yeah, the old, I guess, Mamba comes from Jordan. And that used to be a thing where, as Bulls fans in the 90s, where you just felt like, oh, he won't let them lose. Like, he's decided this is a win. And everyone's going to fall in line.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, anytime the Cubs put together a highlight package of Wilson Contreras just being fired up about things, I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, you can put a good highlight reel together of Wilson Contreras that involves no hits and no actual, like, doing a baseball play. Yeah. Just him, like, freaking out about stuff is wonderful.
I mean, the like dribbler he hits up the middle that ties the game against the Giants.
Yeah.
That, like, he comes around first. The like look on his face and the way he reacts that's like maybe my favorite clip of him.
And I'm reminded of Kyle Schwarber after the wild card game, consoling Wilson and then going to tell reporters, not in a grandstanding way, but saying that no one cares more than him. Right. And which is a reason to love both those two guys.
Right.
Schwarber really taking care of the guy and letting everyone know, like, this guy, it really matters to Wilson Contreras. And I'm glad he's still on the team as we speak right now.
Absolutely.
I had a dream that Wilson Contreras was suiting up for the Phillies, which wouldn't make sense. They have the only catcher who might be better, but yeah.
So we trade Bryant for Arenado straight up, and then Contreras for Real Muto.
Yeah, I mean, okay, but yeah, I don't know what my dream was doing, but it might have been converting him to left. Who knows? But that's more of a nightmare. Stay Wilson forever. We are approaching spring training, man. What, in 2 weeks? I guess 2 weeks of podcast. We'll be right there.
I now have a World Series ring, so I'll be.
Yeah, you got it authentically.
It's pretty sweet. Do I actually wear it to a game just to be ridiculous?
Yeah, I think you do, and you say nothing about it, and you just wait for people to approach you.
Don't address it.
Yeah, this guy might be important, Yeah. Cool. Well, follow us at Away Games Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Anything else before we go?
Where can people follow us on TikTok?
On TikTok, follow us in your dreams, bitches. Yeah, I'm not lip syncing for this. We would have to reach if we reach 50,000 downloaders. We will.
It's just you and me flossing to Go Cubs Go.
Good Lord, I can't. It would take serious money to make me do that. Yeah.
Like $50.
Yeah, that's pretty serious. Yeah, $50. Bring it. Hit us on the Patreon. Thanks for listening, everybody.